All right, so we're starting chapter 9 today. This is about groups and group processes. I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. And come on. There we go. All right. So we're going to first, what do you think a group is? What makes a group? Like, how would
Social
you,
interaction. Oh, language. You share the same language.
oh, I like that answer. Okay, so give me some more basic uh, aspects of a group. Basic.
Survival.
Hmm. More basic than that, or maybe less basic. I don't know.
People
Um,
that like the same things.
what?
People that like the same things.
Okay, something like that. Yes, and how, you're looking at a group of people. How do you know it's a group?
Because there's a lot of them.
Okay, right. So there are very simple parts of a group. It's two or more people who interact and are interdependent, and that means they're relying on one another in the sense that their needs and goals cause them to influence each other. Very simple, very obvious. Now we could get down into okay, so what are the things that uh, impact the group? It would be a good example would be language, right? Having a similar language and very basic stuff like even birds, like birds of different species don't communicate using the same bird songs or calls. So that in and of itself will help form the group having a similar repertoire. So you also have, and then Corey pointed out, well, there's evolutionary pressures. Absolutely, right? It's necessary for the survival of some species of animal because some species evolved to benefit from staying in groups while others uh, um, saw it as a detriment to their survival. So groups have a number of other benefits. Now we're talking specifically at this point, though, right now, just right now, because we are going to talk about non-human animals in the future. Um, but we're talking about people. Okay, so groups have a number of other benefits. It's they're an important source of information. So as in they help us resolve ambiguity in the social world. Like if we don't know what's going on, we can rely on others, maybe who have more experience, more expertise, or have been in the situation longer. We can rely on them to be a source of information. It's also an important aspect of who we are, right? It helps us define who we are, right? So I am a member of the Cone group, right? The Cone clan, right? So I have my wife, I have my children, and so on, right? It also helps us feel distinct from other groups, okay? As in a part of our identity that helps us label who we are. I am male. I am older. Okay. Uh, and groups also help establish social norms, right? So, what are social norms? Right. So, social norms are the things that help establish the rules that govern our behaviors in society, right? So, as a result of this, though, it may come to at a cost to our social roles, which we know are our expectations based on some affiliation with a group. So we should all at this point be familiar with the Philip Zimbardo Stanford prison experiment, where he put a bunch of college students in a fake uh, prison in the basement of a psychology hall at Stanford University. Half of them were guards, half of them were prisoners. He ended it after 6 days because the guards were being abusive and they were humiliating. Okay, they were harassing, and then the prisoners became passive, helpless, and withdrawn. It was supposed to last 2 weeks, but update um, uh, information or news came out that he was actually coaching the guards, so it kind of ruined his whole
What?
thing. Yeah,
He
but
was egging them on?
yeah, he was like, "Don't you think the guards?" It was like off camera and off, off the side, so it was never recorded. But the guards eventually came out and said, he was kind of telling us what to do,
Oh.
which kind of blew up his whole thing.
Yeah, that kind of ruins the whole.
Yeah. Yeah. But we've seen this in real life. The Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq, the United States soldiers, they were abusing the Iraqi prisoners, humiliating them, abusing them sexually, And then these pictures were released, and it shocked the American public that we could be, that we could do this. And Zimbardo said, which and the reason why I still teach it is because the concept is right. The concept that our social roles can have an incredible influence on what we think, what we feel, and how we act, right? Based on our expectations. I mean, you look at some of your friends or family members who are corrections officers or border patrol employees, or maybe police, or whatever, some area of law enforcement where they're dealing with people who are breaking the law or have broken the law. If you talk to them about their experiences, let's say in a correctional facility in the prison, they're going to say, yeah, we have to make sure that we don't allow this and we don't allow that, and we communicate to them a certain way. They're fulfilling a social role. So when something's cohesive, it means it's sticky, right? So cohesion means it sticks together. So group cohesiveness are the qualities of a group that bind members together, and it promotes liking between members, right? So the more cohesive a group is, the more its members are likely to stay in the group, take part in group activities, and try to recruit new like-minded members. And this is if anybody knows Professor Lindsay,
Yes.
she she has an incredible group of friends who they're all creative, and they're all fun, and they're all passionate and loving and caring and expressive. And if you've met one of Professor Lindsay's friends, you've met most of them, because they are all just incredibly artistic and like anyway, they're all like-minded. They're all involved in theater or literature or something to do with the arts.
I don't know. I might be the odd one out.
Yeah, but you are still very creative.
Oh, I wouldn't go. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
But
yes.
if you look at all of her other friends, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. If you look at some of Professor Lindsay's friends, a lot of them are driven by the performing arts. And
Yeah,
then if you
very
look,
theater driven.
yes,
I was in a musical with her.
yeah, see,
I did Spam a lot. I can't
Nice.
sing.
Oh.
I can't sing. I can act, but I can't sing.
I
I
don't know
was-
how it would be in acting. I mean, I'm pretty dramatic. So, I mean, like,
Yeah.
I'm not good at lying, but I'm good at storytelling. So, if you tell me to lie, I get all weird and clenchy. But if you tell me to, like, just go with it, oh, I got you.
Yeah.
I was a French god in Spam a lot. It was really fun. It was so fun.
Yeah, acting is great. But like I was saying, some of her friends are heavily involved in the performing arts. But if you look, she's also a member of book clubs and stuff. So there are others who don't perform, but they still like the arts that are in writing, the literature. So I mean, they're all artistic in one way or
I
another.
meet her friend Tetro. Wow.
Okay?
He's in the theater.
So when it comes to group cohesiveness, if a task within the group requires cooperation, cohesiveness can help performance. But if maintaining good relationships is most important for the group, it can actually interfere with optimal performance. And the reason why is because it's something called groupthink. Groupthink is where people will sacrifice their contribution, or even they'll sacrifice what they believe is the best solution to a problem, just to maintain group cohesiveness, just to maintain unanimity.
So, groupthink isn't the thing when you're in a mob and you're doing terrible things and you blame it on the group.
No, that's we'd call that mob mentality,
Oh.
or we'd also call it I believe it's called it's individualization or individuation. I can't remember which one it is.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. De-individualization or de-individuation, where you
Yeah,
can't be
but-
identified in a group.
Yeah.
hmm I mean, it could be an aspect of groupthink, but groupthink, it depends on how you word that question. So groupthink essentially is where a decision needs to be made, and the best decisions will be sacrificed in an effort to maintain group cohesion.
Okay.
So it could be the result. The result could be a mob, right? It could be. You're right. It could.
So as a question on a test, would you think that the group think would be a more positive outwarded question and mob think would be more of a negative?
Groupthink, if the task is to make the best decision, it's actually probably not a positive thing. It's probably not a good thing.
Okay.
It'd actually be a bad thing. Sounds
Because
good,
you're
doesn't it?
because you're sacrificing the better outcome to keep the
Right.
group together, not for the group's outcome.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yep.
Okay.
It just sounds like a good thing, but it's not. Yeah. Group diversity. I love this. Group members tend to be alike in age, sex, beliefs, and opinions. So why are they similar? We like people who are like us, right? Homophily, right? We are attracted romantically and just platonically to people who are like us. Why? Because we have to maintain our self-esteem. So that means we have to value aspects of ourselves. So if we're valuing aspects of ourselves, that means when we see people who are like us, we're going to like them too. Okay. And of course, groups will operate in ways that encourage similarity, right? Come on, do what we're doing. You'll like it. Homogenous groups are more cohesive, but, and this is the part that I really like, diverse groups perform better. So in one study where they took the variables of sales, revenue from sales, and the number of customers, they found the more diverse the group, either by race or gender, the better they did. So when there's high diversity, you can see on the left side, racial diversity level high, which means over 25%, they did so much better in sales as compared to the low diversity, less than 10%. And they went to businesses, essentially 1,000 different businesses. So what does this mean? It means that when you guys are all rich and famous and you are supporting your own businesses and you're building and building, have diversity.
Is that because everyone brings something from their
Yes,
cultural background
you got it.
so they can
Exactly.
market to a broader range
Yes.
of people?
You got it. They're all bringing exactly something in addition, which can be casting a wider net of people. That's exactly right.
Hmm.
Okay. Individual behavior in a group setting. Social facilitation. This is fascinating. Okay. So the idea okay, so think about like facilitating, right? It means you're helping, it means you're contributing. It means you're kind of doing something that's having an impact on someone else, right? All right. So people do better on simple tasks and worse on complex tasks when they are in the presence of others. So it sounds like social facilitation should be something that's just always good, not necessarily. What it's saying is that when we are working on something simple and we're around other people where we can be evaluated, if it's a simple task, we'll do better. And I'm saying like sorting pens, right? You get a box with red and blue pens, and they say, separate the red and the blue, put the blue in this box, put the red in this box. And if you're doing this in front of an audience, you're actually going to be able to separate those pens faster than if you were alone because you're being evaluated. But if it's a complex task and they say, solve this puzzle, solve this riddle, solve this something that is complex, okay? And there's a group of people watching you, it becomes a distraction, right? You become sort of like mildly or moderately aroused in a way that kind of confuses you, right? So on complex tasks, we do worse, right? So the presence of others can mean one of two things: performing a task with coworkers doing the same thing you are, or performing a task in front of an audience that only observes you. So you're working with your colleagues, or your colleagues are watching you. If the task is simple, which means well learned, which means easy, the mere presence of others improves your performance. And this phenomenon is found in humans as well as other species, even cockroaches. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So in 1898, this is considered one of the first social psychology experiments. They had kids wind up a fishing line on a reel. Simple task. When they did it in the presence of others, they were faster. When they did it alone, they were slower. Simple task, easy, just winding it up. Simple task that in the presence of others, they do it faster. Now, in our classrooms, right, when we're taking an exam or a quiz in a classroom around other people, if it's an easy, if we're well prepared for it, if it's a simple quiz or exam for us, like the topic is easy or we like it, or there's something that, we just know our stuff about this topic, we'll do better. But if it's a difficult exam, we'll do worse. So here's the cockroach experiment. So cockroaches don't like light. They run from light. They like the dark. And what they did is they had cockroaches. Now look at the left diagram here. And they would put a cockroach in the start point here. Then they would shine a light at the start point, which would motivate it to get to the other side where there is no light. Simple, right? That's their motivation. That's the goal. And it's a very simple maze. It's a straight line. Okay. So what they did is they would take a cockroach one at a time, and they would put them in this box at the one point, turn the light on, and they would time it. How long did it take to go from one end to the other? Okay. Took about this much time, this much time. They got an average. Then they did it again, but they put audience boxes in here, and they had other cockroaches in those boxes. And what they found was, in a simple task, because this is a simple task, the cockroaches would go faster to the other side in the presence of other cockroaches. They would be moving faster because it's a simple task and others are around it. They'd be moving faster than if these audience boxes were empty. Now, in comparison to a complex task, now instead of it being a straight line, it's a cross, and they don't go straight across now. Now they have to go up and to the right to escape. Okay? So they did this again when they were alone, shown the light, found out how long it took to get to this side, to this little point here, and compared it to, and now this is a complex task, compared it to when they had audiences and doing the complex task, and it took them longer because it was a complex task and they were doing it in the presence of other cockroaches. It took them longer to get to the goal than it
They
did.
try it with other things or just cockroaches?
Oh,
Like, what
I'm
if
sure they've done it with other things. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Like, what if they still did it with the cockroaches, but they put the audience boxes with ants? Does it really matter? Or is it just the presence of something else in the box that makes them?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know. That's a good question, though. So yeah, is it the presence of something versus nothing, not the presence of other group members, if you will?
Like, if we're in the presence of a room full of puppies, we're probably going to be pressured
Right.
into.
Right. You're like, oh, puppies. No.
Or maybe we would be. Maybe we'd want to do better for the future of their puppyhood. So I don't know.
I guess it depends on your outlook, what your goals are. So again, when working on a more difficult task, we see the opposite results than working on a simple task in front of others. A task can take longer to solve when others are present than when performing alone. And people and animals, which is kind of silly, I should say non-human animals, do worse in the presence of others when the task is difficult. So I guess put this in your tool belt. Understand that some people work better alone when it's complex, and kind of maybe be more understanding, be more, I don't want to say forgiving, but maybe kind of when you're running your business, when you're doing things and you're making big moves and stuff, understand that if the task is complex for an individual, you're going to get the best product if they're working alone on a complex task.
Yeah, I do better at Call of Duty when I'm alone. And then when I'm playing with a group of friends, I feel pressured and I'm like, I don't do as good.
Yeah, right. There it is.
With trivia questions, I do much better on my own.
Yeah.
But if there's any sort of person in the room, I'm like, oh, 6.
Right.
They're like,
Right.
it's a color, Corey. It's a color. And I'm like, 12. I can smell blue. I don't know what you want from me. Don't pick me on your team for trivia because I panic.
Yeah, you have to be relaxed, I think, for that. Yeah. I know. I've had good trivia experiences and very poor trivia experiences.
I have weird knowledge. I'm also as comfortable as like a nun in a whorehouse when we're doing trivia. I'm like, oh,
Okay.
That's a good one. You should write that down.
I've heard it before.
Oh, damn it.
I've heard something like that. Yeah.
Mm.
I've also heard the reverse, where it would be say a prostitute in a church.
Oh, that's an average one. That was me growing up. We have to move to times that relate now.
You're right. We are progressing. We are developing as a nation. Yes.
And as a group.
And as a group. Yeah. We're facilitating each other. Okay.
Yeah.
So the presence of others will increase our physiological arousal, and that means heart rate increasing, respiratory rate increasing. You're going to have probably some sort of glandular response, maybe adrenaline, noradrenaline, right? You might produce a little bit of sweat, that body temperature increase. That's the fight or flight response, right? So when such arousal exists, it's easier to do something that's simple, right? Now your body's mobilized, it's energized, it's good to go. But it's harder to do something complex or learn something new under these situations, under these circumstances. So the three theories that explain the arousal and social facilitation. One, other people cause us to become particularly alert and vigilant, which could be helpful. Other people make us apprehensive about how we're being evaluated. That's not. And three, other people distract us from the task at hand. That's not helpful either. So because other people can be unpredictable, we are in a state of greater alertness in their presence, and this will cause mild arousal. So make us apprehensive. Other people can see what you're doing. You feel like they're evaluating you, and this would also cause mild arousal. Divided attention produces arousal. Think about that alone. Just having others around. When you are not, even if you're not thinking about their evaluation of you, if you have a task in front of you and you have a group of people around you or in front of you or something near you, observing you, just by knowing you're looking at the task and you're looking at the people, you're looking at the task, what this is doing by attending to multiple things, it's increasing neural firing in your central nervous system, which then in turn will increase overall global arousal. Now, the opposite of social facilitation is social loafing, and it's reversed. It's simple task, we do worse. Complex task, we do better. You'll see. So when in the presence of others, individual efforts cannot be distinguished from those around them. So if being with other people means merging into a group and becoming less noticeable than when alone, this will increase relaxation. The classic example or experiment is tug of war. Okay. So they conducted this experiment where they had people play tug of war, but they rigged the rope in some way that can measure what each individual was pulling, how hard they were pulling. Then they had them pull the rope by themselves. And what they found was when they were pulling in a group, the individual efforts were actually lessened. They were pulling less strenuously than when they were alone. So, with social loafing, people do worse on simple tasks, but better on complex tasks when they are in the presence of others. And the individual, this is the important part, when the individual performance cannot be evaluated. It means that when you're in a group, if you know that you cannot be evaluated individually, right? Like, okay, let's say you each are given a box of pens, blue and red, and your job is to separate them. And let's say they can't keep track of how many you've done, right? You put them in a box and you just dump them in. You just dump them into the collection of blues and the collection of reds. No one knows how many you've contributed. Okay. As a result of this simple task, where you're all working together, where your performance, your production cannot be identified, you're going to do worse. If it can be identified, if it is kept track of how many pens you put into the blue and how many you put into the red, it's a simple task, you're going to do better. Okay, so social facilitation and social loafing. The arousal enhances performance on simple tasks, but impairs performance on complex ones. Becoming relaxed impairs performance on simple tasks, but improves performance on complex tasks. What does this mean? It means that if you are relaxed, if the group around you is somehow relaxing you, you will perform better on complex tasks. If they're arousing you, you will do worse. Think of it as solving a puzzle or a riddle in the presence of strangers, and they're just in the room or whatever, versus solving a puzzle or riddle in the presence of your best and closest friends. And they're not, no one's evaluating. You're just, let's say it's very simple. Let's do it very simply this, okay? You are doing a crossword puzzle, and you're at a gathering of some kind. You don't know any of these people, and you're just doing the crossword puzzle. Now, let's say you got the crossword puzzle and you're at home and your friends are all kind of just chit-chatting quietly over there, and they're drinking tea or coffee or whatever and just enjoying, their time together. And you're doing a crossword puzzle, you're relaxed. It's a complex task and you're going to do much better. So the beginning of this chapter is very repetitious, but they really want you to understand that social facilitation and social loafing, one arouses you, the other one relaxes you. One, your efforts can be observed, can be identified. The other, it cannot. One, with the facilitation, simple tasks, better performance, complex, worse. Social loafing, simple, worse, complex, better. Any questions about that?
This is going to get confusing.
I think if you know one, you'll understand the other. Right? Just memorize one and then know the other one's just the opposite. Every part of it is the opposite.
Okay.
No. Gender. Okay. Who loafs socially more, men or women?
Men.
Okay, that is correct. But in a social situation, who is more likely to put in less effort? And it's going to be men.
Mhm.
Okay. Because women tend to be higher than men in relational interdependence. So they focus on and care about personal relationships with other individuals, and this may make women less likely to engage in social loafing when in groups.
Isn't there another reason for it too, as far as like women being more not analytical, but they work together in groups better? I don't
And
remember.
that is what, yes, Corey, exactly right. That's what relational interdependence means.
No.
So they are working together in a group, and they rely on each other in a
Because
group.
men will try to lead, they'll find a leader and they'll have like a
Yes.
whole hierarchy, and women just tend to work equally as a group to solve the
Yes.
problem at hand.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, which one, Western or Eastern? You're going to see it more in our culture, the social loafing, because Eastern are collectivistic, right? They have an interdependent sense of self, and that as interdependent meaning their identity, or who they identify themselves as, meaning members of a particular social group. I am daughter of, I am son of, I am employee of. That's how they identify themselves in Eastern collectivistic cultures. Western independent, autonomous, American, European cultures, we have more of an independent sense of self. So as a result, more social loafing. So how do we predict if the presence of others will help or hurt performance? Need to know two things. We've already covered this. Can the efforts be evaluated? And is the task simple or complex? And then you can predict. So the first part is, can the individual efforts be evaluated? What they're saying there is, okay, If you know that they can or cannot, that's going to determine whether or not social loafing or social facilitation will happen. So if the individual efforts cannot be evaluated, what's going to happen? Loafing or facilitation if they cannot be evaluated? That's a question. I'm asking you a question. Anyone? If your efforts in the group cannot be evaluated, are you more likely to loaf or be facilitated?
Facilitated?
No.
Oh, see? I told you I was going to be terrible at this.
Think of it this way. You are in a gymnasium on the basketball court. They give you 10 basketballs. You're standing on the free throw line. Everybody's watching you. Can your efforts be evaluated?
Yes.
Yes. So that means you're not going to be socially loafing. It means you're going to be socially facilitated.
I just think of like loafing as lazy and facilitating
Right.
as like you're
Right.
bringing people together.
Right. So lazy would be low arousal.
Mm-hmm.
Facilitated would be high arousal. So if your efforts can be evaluated in this example of playing basketball, how about this one then? You are alone with 10 basketballs. Can your efforts be evaluated?
No.
No, no. Let's say you are in a public park and there are people all around, but no one's paying attention to you. Are your efforts being evaluated?
No.
No. So you're not going to be physiologically aroused. No one's looking at you. You're just playing with a basketball by yourself. So you're going to experience social loafing, not facilitation.
So basically, social loafing is socially laziness.
Yes. Based on physiological arousal. So once you determine if facilitation or loafing is going to happen, now you can predict the performance based on, well, is it easy or is it hard? Is it something that's simple or is it something that's complex? If it's complex and there's social facilitation, they're going to do worse. If it's simple and there's social facilitation, they're going to do better. If it's social loafing and it's a simple task, they're going to do worse. If it's social loafing and it's a complex task, they're going to do better.
Okay.
I know. Moving on. Oh, it is de-individuation. Okay, there's your answer. See, you were way ahead of us. So de-individuation, the loosening of normal constraints on behavior when people cannot be differentiated, such as when they are in a crowd, leading to an increase in impulsive and deviant acts, looting, rioting. That, as Corey pointed out, the mob mentality, de-individuation. I'm going to stop sharing.